conference. At the conference, we decided that we would carry out certain mandates. I don't have them written down, but I'll give you an idea of what they were. One was to bring greater connection or begin the dialogue among the various mansions and facets that make up Rastafari community, the Rastafari community in the Bahamas. One was to establish some form of economic empowerment mission, get something to get money circulating. Another one of those things would be to represent the issues of Rastafari to the government. I can't remember the rest, to be quite honest with you, but I know that we started off in maybe November or so. We had a book drive for T.A. Thompson. I'm actually not sure when that was. We had a book drive for T.A. Thompson, and we also carried out a mission here with them. The grade 9 class of last year, we worked with them for I think 6 to 8 weeks. Different facets coming in and reasoning with them on Rastafari liberty, and just on staying positive on the whole. Yeah, the Hebrew came in and they did some yoga. We had people from the elders came in and speak to them. The EADIC all participated in that event. It was quite successful in terms of dealing with the youth and even with raising awareness for the books. We got quite a few books from the community and from the Bahamian society at large. Then, so it was a book drive and that initiative. Unfortunately, at the end of that, we received a little setback. We wanted to have a grand closing out ceremony with the students and the T.A. Thompson community, and just share with them what we have been doing with that select group of students. That never materialized. We're still here at T.A. Thompson, so there's still time for that to happen. Our objective was to have an impact on the youth. These are the same youth that at one point will probably be young Rastas, young empresses. And so we wanted to give them the right information and cause them to be on the right track. Let them know what's important, what's not important, the liberty that I am carrying, that I am forward. So we had that, and it ended. Actually, it hasn't ended yet. We're looking forward to doing something. It won't be so elaborate, but we really like to give them those books so that they can have more books for their growing library. For those who don't know, the principal has agreed to receive the book and the plaque. He just prefers not to have some grand event, something where we call in the media. Guess that makes them a little uncomfortable. I don't know the person deals with that. Following that really put us on a high note, and everyone was working that together. Following that, we had the reparations debacle. I call it a debacle because out of the blue, you just start seeing all kinds of things come up, and the government of the Bahamas had decided to join in the CARICOM's reparation movement. That reparation movement was initiated by Ralph Gonzalez, the Prime Minister of St. Vincent, who was the chairman of CARICOM at the time. Ralph Gonzalez is somebody who, from my knowledge, has close association with the Rastafari community of St. Vincent. Just to give you a little insight, St. Vincent is a little bit different. They're a small island, archipelago, just like the Bahamas. And honestly, their number one income is tourism, and probably their number two income is growing herb. So their economy is very dependent on growing herb. As a result of that, Ralph Gonzalez, he has a more open mind than a lot of the other Caribbean leaders, to the point where he also initiated the process or initiated the dialogue on the legalization of marijuana, or ganja as we call it, or herbs. So he has a close affinity with Rasta philosophy, and so therefore he took this to CARICOM, which really put reparation and and repatriation back on the map again. We were fully aware that we couldn't depend on the government to carry this thing forward, but we still wanted to participate. And in our participation, first the government selected its own committee. On that committee, there was only one person in the whole Rastafari community that they selected, and that was the Honorable Priest Whitman McKinney. When he went to the meeting, he lobbied for others to be involved directly for one person from the Nayabingi, the Upper Sierra, all of the Nayabingi, two main mansions here in Nassau, for someone from the Upper Sierra, all of the Nayabingi, to be on that committee also. After much deliberations and discussions and melee, someone was selected, a person happened to be me. So we went there and we represented as much as we could. As far as that committee went, we participated in the research on, that's all they did, to research the narrative of the African Bahamas. What grounds do we have to seek reparation? What grounds do we have to say, okay, something has been lost, we've been disadvantaged, and how now we could join in with this regional movement. One of the things that came out of that in our discussion through the community was that we didn't want to feel like we were being consumed by the government. We wanted to still see where that was going, inform that process as much as possible, but still remain as an independent body, not that they telling us what to do. Actually, how that reparation committee actually found out, they looked to us as the Rastafari community to basically tell them where to go, which direction, how to do it. But initially there was, I wouldn't even say a lot of excitement, there was more excitement. And as the weeks and months went on, the reparation committee just fizzled out. People stopped coming. The committee stopped meeting. The committee hasn't met in quite a few months. But it did provide us with a platform to be able to speak to a new sector of society as the Rastafari community. One of the things that was born out of that as a trajectory, a side point, was that we had contact with Alfred Sayers. As you know, Alfred Sayers is the person that is he's in a particular class of people here. And when we're looking to create opportunities for the entire community, that class of people has the resources that would help us to be able to move forward. So we represented the community to him. Out of that discussion, you know, he's also the chairman of the College of the Bahamas. So out of that discussion he picked up the phone right then and called the guy who was dealing with this contractual work that's going on over there now and say, you know what, I got the Rastafari community in front of me. They're saying they need some work. How can you help them? Priest Blyden was charged with keeping contact with that gentleman. Nothing has panned out yet because at the time, the work that they had, there was no new work. It was just them completing the work that they had. But Priest Blyden, who is in that field, being a carpenter among other things, was following up with COD to see if there's any opportunities for the Rastafari community. That leads us to Skill Bank. Skill Bank is something that was initiated during our first term. It wasn't so much actualized in the second term or used, but that would have been necessary if we're going to be having that form of interaction with the College of the Bahamas. Another thing which was really more of a response, we found like somewhere throughout this term, from October to now, there was a cry that House of Rastafari lacks structure. I personally disagree with that because if we're operating, nobody of people could operate without a structure. So it's not that we didn't have a structure, rather that the structure was informal. So Priest Blyden, the chairman, set up on a course to formalize it. We had a series of meetings, and during the same conference here, during the 7 nights of reasoning, we should go through some process where we ratify that, and on October 1st at the end, then we should begin officially House of Rastafari. For those who might not know, the executive, which consisted of Priest Blyden as the chairman, myself as the vice chairman, Benji as the treasurer, Ms. Marcus as the public relations, and something I do with the assistant treasurer. The secretary is Judge Auction, who I thought I saw him just now, Judge Auction. That team was the executive body of what was considered the steering committee, or what happened, what we didn't want to happen in House of Rastafari is like what they do in the rest of the world, where we create this structure and we try to put people in place. What House of Rastafari is supposed to be about is about action. About action. And whatever structures we need to put in place to keep those actions sustainable, those will be the structures that we will create. But in order for us to get to that point, there had to be a group of people who guided it along to that process. That's what we represent. On the last night, on the seventh night of this conference, there will be a election of officers. Those will be the first official officers of the House of Rastafari. Nominations were open from 2 weeks ago. Words have gone around to everyone to let them know. You could have emailed them, you could have called them, you could have done anything to let us know. And we still have some time tonight. Any member of the executive that you see, you can still let us know, and by the end of the night, it will be closed. Nominations will be closed. The positions are available: chairman, vice chairman, treasurer, public relations officer. Sorry, Field Marshal. Field Marshal is the sergeant at arms. That's another one of the posts that's going to be open, also along with Judge, who was the deputy sergeant at arms. Right. So anybody that feels male or female that feels that they can fill one of those posts, please feel free. Feel free. One of the things that we did a lot this year, more so than last year, was focus on healing within the community. Some of it was intentional, some of it was really in response to what's going on. Apparently there's a lot of hurt amongst us at Rastafari. That hurt has been left unattended, some for more than 20 years. And so that hurt has now turned into a lot of anger with long time issues. So we find ourselves at House of Rastafari wanting to bring the community together and realize that we cannot get around those issues. And so an institution was not created but borrowed from an African culture. Traditionally, I guess it's just a community in Java, a community coming together and talk about their issues. But recently, it has been used in places like South Africa after apartheid. It's been used in Rwanda after they had their genocide there. A form of African justice that allows the whole community to take part, inclusive of children, in what went on and participate in the healing process of uncovering truth and moving beyond it. So it's not just about carrying the blame for who did what or being able to say, oh, I don't like you for this. Everything that we were supposed to do within those interventions, as we call them, was supposed to be towards helping the community build and grow. What we did realize is that we did one during our first term, and we had relative success with that relative success. The ones that we tried this year, it wasn't as successful. We still have people in communication. It hasn't led to the total breakdown of what we're trying to do, but it has become a stumbling block. How do we relate to each other as Rasta people? How do we relate to each other as African people in the way that our ancestors used to do, where we don't have this deep-seated anger, we don't have these deep-seated issues, these secrets that Babylon allows us to keep. Just to digress for a moment, within African culture, they have this practice where in certain villages, they have this day or this week where they have this festival, and you get to tell people exactly how you feel about them. It doesn't have to be positive, it can be negative, but everybody understands that that's a purging. That's a purging. So now, if you don't like me for whatever reason, you get to tell me on that day. expect that you just letting me know. And it's not about rowing and fighting. And then children can even do it with their parents. And I can see exactly how that can lead to healing. Because now I now have to face, no matter who I think I am, I now have to face what it is that I've done to you, or what it is that I'm doing to you. In House of Rastafari, we're trying very hard to take on as much of our African culture as possible. And one of the things that we're going to be moving toward, the central body that meets, which is the heart of House of Rastafari, which once a week, Mondays, I would like to say from 7, let's say from 7 until we were on Mondays from 7 until the reasoning over. You know, these Rastafari people, the reasoning going to take a short time. So from like about 7, 8, or 9 until we reason on which direction House of Rastafari is going. On October 21st, hopefully the name of that body will be, if I'm not mistaken, Gugual. I ain't too sure of the pronunciation. It's an Ethiopian word, and it's Ethiopian for the gathering. If you would notice, even on here, the flyer, even on here, the flyer at the bottom, the theme of the conference is Balafa Baladama Kata, which means on the way. Right? So we're hoping to begin to use our African language. That's a very important part of our liberation, to come out of our slave masters' language. Another example of that is the term Martha. I end up in a lot of debates with people about black people, our consciousness, our slavery, what we've been through. And a big argument that people who don't see it our way have is that, oh, we thought black people ain't the only set of people who gone through slavery. But the type of slavery that we went through and what we're still going through even after slavery means that what we went through is quite different from what the African who was in bondage to another African on the continent went through, or even with the Irish who was in bondage under the Romans, what he went through. All of those was different from what we as African people went through, because the whole entire world system is set up on our subjugation. And so instead of using their word slavery or their word Holocaust, which is identified with Jews, not us, why not use our own word? And in our African languages, we have so many words. And so there's a growing movement of people to say what we went through as Africans is not slavery, but actually something called Ma'afa, M-A-A-F-A. And trust me, when you use these types of languages, then you're able to create your point. You don't have to take away that idea that's already associated with the word and replace it with something. You now get to just put it there. This is what we went through as African people, not slavery, not Holocaust, but actually a Maafa. And Maafa is a Kiswahili word, which means great tragedy. It's a great tragedy. So these are words that were used in the African community from before, but we are beginning to use them now again. Using our African language is very important in communication. And moving forward in the House of Rastafari, we will be entertaining that more. Last year we had a session, unfortunately we couldn't do it again. Last year we had a session with Priest Debbie, who is from Ghana, and he was able to share some of the tidbits of the language. And it's just so powerful for us to be able to speak in our native languages, and even be calling ourselves by our native names. But all of that is a digression from where we went. And so, as I said, Priest Blyden set up on a course of working with the community to set up the structure, the official structure of House of Rastafari, and it should be available on one of these nights for discussion. Actually, I think the discussion time is over. What we actually going to do is just ratify it. Either we're going to accept it as it is, or we're going to send it back for more work. So those were the major things spot is trying to fill in for Breeze Friday. Yeah, so those would be the things. The interventions, the book drive, and work with the students here, the structure, use of African language. Moving forward now, I guess at this point I'm going to officially say that we have until the end of the evening, but anyone who wishes to nominate either themselves or someone else, even if that person is a sitting member of the executive, feel free to re-nominate whomever is your choice to carry out the Rastafari forward. I'm really not sure what's going to happen if nobody is nominated. I have no idea who is nominated or if there were any nominations, but I know upwards to maybe Sunday there have been no nominations forward. So yeah, somebody was nominated. That's it. Yeah, but upwards to Sunday there was no one brought forward any nominations. So I guess that would be something we would have to discuss. An issue that came up, especially during reparation, and left a leave a bit of taste in my mouth, was that the executive was illegitimate for various reasons. Right? The person who brought that up, first of all, is not here right now, so I won't go into full details about that. But this is why it's important for us to go through this process of validating the executive so that arguments like that cannot be made and muddy the water, because a lot of that went on this year. I would not be myself if I didn't say this part. There was a lot of pettiness, a lot of pettiness, a lot of egoism. There was a lot of that this year. It seemed as though as soon as we begin to fight, we begin to fight amongst ourselves. We begin to allow mistrust, distrust, misinformation, and our own personal feelings about people to get in the way of progress. I believe, yes, it is important for us to talk about those things, to talk about our feelings, how it feels, but we cannot allow the work of His Majesty to suffer at the hands of feelings. I would hope that this year, moving forward, that we could put our plans in place and execute our plans, because that's what I'm talking about. My personal opinion is that a team gets to be a team not by sitting down and talking about being a team, but by being a team. Basketball team, football team, baseball team, when they get out there on the field and they practice together and they work together, they do things together, that's how they become a team. Yes, there will be times when they have to sit down and talk about how ones interact as a team, but the main focus is going to be how do we work together to win the game. And that's what I hope that we can do in this third year of House of Rastafari. Focus more not on what other people could do, but on what me. What can I do? I would hope that when people come to meetings of either House of Rastafari or ASPA or NIAB or EAPIC, King of Kings, whichever one of the facets, that if there's a plan, everyone walks out with something to do. That's what I hope we move forward with. Everyone walks out with something to do. Because we have a lot of people who live in talk. But when it's time for harvest, the hands are free. What we need to do is recommit ourselves to putting our hands towards the world. It's easy to talk. And I really want to say, if you find yourself criticizing a lot, you find yourself saying this is the problem, that's the problem, the next thing is the problem, then choose one and work on solve it. Just not all of them, just choose one. Because that's the only way we as Rastafari people uplift our standards. The mark of a community or even a mature man or woman is their ability to handle the challenges that come their way. Not to hide from the challenges, not to run and pretend the challenges aren't there, but their ability to handle the challenges that come their way. Native Americans went through what we went through, they are no longer here. They can't even defend their own story anymore. But we, as African people, when they brought us here, now slavery, now master, that aspect of slavery, the chattel bondage, that is no more. Instead of their chains and their whips breaking us, they made us stronger. That's how we are as an African people. Then we know for sure who our enemy is. Yes, there was people on the plantation, especially here in the Bahamas. I don't want to over-glorify. We didn't have a Jamaica or America or wherever it is, and maybe they even have this there too. But almost every revolt in the Bahamas against the system was stopped not by the system, but by one of us African people. Going to them and telling them, somebody come. There was a brother named Corino, and most of you probably haven't even heard about it. You heard about Pompey. Pompey is the brother from Exuma who jumped on the boat with a couple of people and come to the governor here and say, hold on, the treatment's bad in Exuma. But there's a brother named Corino who was right here in Nassau, and he was a Maroon. And his plan wasn't to come and ask them nothing. His plan was to kill all the white people. All the white people started with the governor, and one of us gone and let them know the plan. So they were fully aware of it. So he ended up on the run. Somebody, again, one of us, called him into town. He was living probably up in the Blue Hills, because according to Heidi Garima, the Blue Hills area, what is now Blue Hills, was where the Maroons of Nassau lived. Our history doesn't even say nothing about them. We figure we don't even have them. But anywhere that there's people in bondage, they would be trying to live free. And so they would live in the scarce parts where there was no voice. So Corina was one of them people who was living in that area. Somebody called into town. And it wasn't police at that time, but I guess the equivalent of police, they saw him and they tried to capture him. And he killed one of them before they captured him. They captured him, take him to the fort, torture him till he died. That was his story. I don't tell you that to feel sorry for Korea. I tell you that to say a part of our legacy here as a people, just as a people, and even as Rastafari people, it's the culture that they force on us, and we have to try, we have to let ourselves know it's there so that we can get rid of it. But a part of our culture is doing things to subvert or destroy our own liberation. Over the last 12 months, I get to see that first time. That Irish is still alive in my life. It ain't necessarily the Babylon that's stopping us. They can't stop us. They don't have the power to stop us. It's us stopping I and I self.
Yeah.
So I would hope that in the time coming forward, whomever is selected as the executive receives the full support of those who are sitting down there, those who are sitting up here. Because we don't need large numbers of people. What we need is committed people, whatever the numbers are. It only takes a small spark to get a fire burning. And we are the keepers of fire. We are the fire people. So we need even less of a spark to get the fire going. All we have to do is be committed. So I would trust that everyone who is here and those who we would bring on other nights and other evenings will make a commitment that next year this time you will have been able to say, this is what I have done to contribute towards the development of myself as an African. This is what I've done towards establishing His Majesty's kingdom. Because it's Him who I am at work for you. It's not myself. It is Him alone. He has already cleared the way. We just have to use our hands now and leave the house. So that's my little talk. I really thought that Bishop Lion would have been here right now, maybe. So I guess I can turn it over to the moderator. Thank you all for listening.
Let's give it a round of applause to the host of the host of Rastafari. Like the lion said, the chain of our unity is just as strong as the weakest link. In the heights of our story as Ethiopian people abroad, our worst enemy has been ourselves. No doubt, we cannot deny it. But like the verse says, what we as Ethiopians have been through the centuries of our past that gave us a glory to know where we come from is that we are overcomers. We don't settle, we don't bargain, and there's no strings attached. Our commitment is to the Almighty, and each one of us who travels this liberty as a Rasta man knows that the Zion that we possess is a garden of Eden. Like the Lord said, not even Babylon is our enemy, you know. But she can't even enter into our Zion. All the Babylon is carnal. Take away the Lord. So the only enter into is of our own coming and going. Idea, that's the job. Like the man was saying about if one of us would like to put forward an case, you're still free to. But as of this first night in the conference, the nomination will be closed. So, what will take place is a verifying under the power of those whose divineness and purpose is to bring unity in the community of Rastafari. The Rastafari. They might be youth, they might be young, they may not be as old as you would expect them to be, but he refers to fire. The everyone so around us is fire. They need guidance, they need the opportunity to light. Better than any given them. So what we are as elders in the house of Rastafari, and there's more than I and I. There are many others who are elders. We should take their word up. But for I and I, our duty as the council elders is to see that the youth be able to take the banner. If I were to train them to be leaders today, they can start being leaders right now today. They're going to take on the road, they're going to fulfill it. If everybody goes on today, who of I, any one of us, to judge the mind of the Almighty? Which man could? None of us have that right to interfere that right. That's him and him alone. And that is the duty that we all see, that each one of us is a garden, a word within a word. And what is majesty have for you to show towards the unity of humanity? You got to show it. You got to be part of this. In the view of the human, where are nature's life? To humanity. Rastafari. Now, I would like to go to the topic of spirituality. Like I say, the nomination of officers will be, if there is no name that is presented through the night of this conference, on that here Field Marshal, who's supposed to give a presentation on spiritual